and we'll start the Facebook live stream as well. I'm going to share my screen for a moment. Share my screen for a moment. To just show everybody what else we're doing. So this is the Incarceration and Education panel. We're very excited about this one. At 3:30, we have a panel specifically devoted to environmental justice, even more specifically dealing with the issue of pipelines. And at 5 to 6:15, we have our wrap up and action planning open session. Something that we've been discussing, we've been running this peace conference for about 12 years now, and a concern that we usually have is that great as it is and informative as it is and exciting that as it is, we're trying to figure out we tried to come up at this time around with some sort of concrete strategy for how we could translate everything that we did here into concrete action at the college. And what we came up with was, well, what if we just posed a question to every speaker at the end of the conference, at the end of their session? Every moderator asks every speaker the following question: what would you love to see Northampton Community College in its capacity as faculty, administration, staff, students do to further the cause that you've shared with us today? So we sent that question out to all of our speakers about a week before the conference started so they could have a moment to think about it. You'll see that question will be asked at the end of our session today. And what we're doing is we're compiling the answers that we've been given to that question. Nate Carpenter, who originally had this idea, is compiling the answers that people have given to that question over the course of the last 3 days and synthesizing it down into the foundation of our wrap-up and action plan session, which we're very excited that the president of the college, Mark Erickson, who's here with us today, is going to join us at, and Gina Turner, our diversity, equity, and inclusion specialist at the college right now, is going to join us for that discussion. And we're going to figure out how exactly we can take what we've learned here, which is a lot, and specifically the wisdom and asks of and recommendations of the various speakers. And we're going to take that and as the foundation of our wrap-up and planning session and figure out where we can go from here to use this whole conference as a springboard to concrete action. So I'm very excited about that aspect of it all. Everybody, specifically speakers, we invite you to join us during that conversation. That'll be from 5 to 6:15. And then another really exciting aspect of this conference has been that we have been treated to every night of the conference. It has ended with both the screening of a locally produced documentary and that's dealing with social justice issues that we're dealing with here, and a follow-up Q&A with the creators of the documentary. Nandini Sekund, one of our panelists here, was generous enough to have shared with us Tuesday night Inside Outside, her film about women in Northampton County Jail. We had an amazing conversation about that film afterwards. And then last night, we watched another incredible film and had an incredible conversation. And then tonight, we are actually treated to the debut of a film. This film is called The Black Poets Project, The Beautiful Needful Thing. And basically the concept of this was a variety, nine women artists in the Lehigh Valley were invited to choose their favorite poem that was written by a Black American poet and to read it in a beautiful setting. And then a film was made of the readings. And tonight we have the videographer of that film and the Jenny Gilrain, the woman who initially had the idea and oversaw the project, as well as 4 of the poets. And that's going to be moderated by our very own Sharon Gavin Levy, much beloved colleague. So with that said, I invite everybody to stick around. There's a lot more going on, a lot of exciting stuff. And with that said, I will turn things over to Erin for our panel today. Thank you very much, and I'm very excited to see what comes of this.
Thank you, Ken, and welcome everybody to this panel on incarceration and education. And welcome, of course, to the 2020 Peace and Social Justice Conference here at NCC. As Ken said, my name is Erin Riley. I teach sociology here at NCC, and I'll be the moderator for this afternoon's panel. And I'd like to offer a particularly warm welcome to our speakers today. We have three: Mike Logan from NCC, Nandini Sikand from Lafayette, as well as Bonnie Winfield from Lafayette. Hi, everybody. So a word about our format today. We'll begin with a brief introduction by our speakers, and then each speaker will have 5 to 10 minutes to share their stories. And then we're gonna open up the floor to discussion. I think the speakers really made it clear that they love to hear from you and to talk and let your interests be the guide for this time here this afternoon. So we'll open up the floor to discussion. And then, as Ken mentioned, I'll conclude by posing a question to each of the speakers about what we, the NCC community, can do to move these issues forward. Okay, so without further ado, we'll do the round of introductions. Mike, would you mind getting started?
Thanks, Erin. My name is Michael Logan. I am a philosophy professor at NCC main campus. I'm very happy to be here today. Thank you, Erin. I'm really proud to be on this panel with Nandini and Bonnie. I would like to give a special thank you to Ken Burak for all his really hard work on this conference. Also Anita Forrester, Rachel Gorchov. And I'd also like to thank Dr. Erickson, who I noticed is in the audience too, for being here today. Okay, maybe Bonnie, would you like to introduce yourself now?
Sure. So, am I on? Yeah, you can hear me? I don't do this like everybody else is all into Zoom. I'm still into like, let's meet in person with masks. Anyway, so I'm Bonnie Winfield. I have retired from Lafayette College, and I am the director of the Journey Home program, which is a trauma-informed art therapy program in Northampton County Jail. I've been doing that since 2008. And yeah, so I thank everybody. This is such a privilege. Program. So thank you very much.
Hi everyone, my name is Nandini Sikand and I teach at Lafayette College in the Film and Media Studies program. I have, thanks to Bonnie, been very involved with Northampton County Jail, where I teach pre-COVID, right, before COVID, BC, right, taught yoga and classes as well, but it's sort of interrupted now for most of us. And I also not just completed a year ago, finished a film that some of you may have seen on Tuesday called Inside Outside, and it's about the women of Northampton County, and I was hoping to show a little bit of that today. And yeah, we can talk more about that.
Great, thank you. So we'll begin the discussion. Why don't we go in the same order? Mike, Bonnie, and Nandini, with your stories. Mike, you're on. There you go.
Thank you, Erin. I'm going to share my screen in a moment, but first let me just say what I'm going to do. I really thought about doing this a lot, and people close to me have watched me begin and time and time again in different ways. But I'm just going to give you the basic facts about where I've been. I was teaching for NCC at Wayne County Correctional Facility in Honesdale, Pennsylvania, between May of 2008 and September of 2019. I'm sorry, 2018 and 2019. So I was there about 16 months straight through both summers and the academic year. So that's the timeline. Most of the things I'm going to show you were either written or photographed or both between January and May of 2019, after I had already been working at Wayne County Correctional for about 5 or 6 months and had a certain level of rapport with the clients there by then. I'm really going to try to hold off on running my mouth a lot and just show you what I have. And it's meant to give you a glimpse into the thoughts and feelings of the men that I encountered in the correctional facility in Wayne County. I did work with women also, but I decided to make this specific to the men because I think I'm the only one on the panel who had that kind of experience. And Nandini and Bonnie will certainly cover women's experiences more than sufficiently. I don't know what you'll see and what I will show you, but if you have any questions, of course, feel free to ask during the Q&A period. I want to introduce you to 3 young men, all between the ages of 20 and 30, who are residents of WCCF Wayne County Correctional Facility. So I'm going to take a second here to share my screen. And I'm going to start with one moment, please. There we go. Now, I changed the names and crossed the names off some of these documents to protect the privacy of the people who I'm talking about. And I'm going to use nicknames that I made up for them. They have some basis in experience, but they're fictional names, and we'll just call them that for now. First of all, a young man who we will call L17. He is a vet. He is suffers from PTSD and bipolar disorder, and he is a father and a husband, and he suffered greatly, he told me, because he, okay, I'm going to have to run through some slides quickly here. Excuse me. But he suffered a lot of emotionally, he told me, because of his distance from his family and because of some of the things that were happening to him while he was incarcerated that he couldn't do anything about. And so I'm going to just let you look a little bit about what he wrote here. This one says, sometimes we call for help, but it doesn't work. Someone tried to rob my other house. We called the police and they arrested my wife for protecting herself and our home. Second time in 6 months. Now they have taken both of my homes. And I'll just let you peruse this a little bit too here. Here's another episode. My daughter called the night I lost it. My mind, my brain plays tricks on me. She called for help, not to lose her father for the rest of her life. I have a home, now it's just a cell. I will prevail and the truth will prevail.
Mike, just as an FYI, I'm not sure if you're intending to click on these, but all we're seeing is the small versions of all of them on the same time.
Oh,
is that, if that's intended, that's
no. I think maybe I can share my whole screen, right? share the entire screen. Okay, is that zooming in?
Yes, thank
It
you.
is. Okay, I apologize. Okay, this is the really important one. You heard me read the other ones. In the interest of time, I'm not going to back up. This one says, wife gets into car accident. Police are called and they arrest her for another county. Now she's not allowed to come for visits anymore. It all a ploy to break me down further because I won't bow down to the county. I'm a soldier built and made by the government. They should give me back to them to handle my mental health, my mental illness. The county and state believe that they are above the government. Okay, and there are some other things that L17 wrote, but the one that the last one here, it says, is about his experience with the police. Arrest and give fines to everyone, even if you're the victim. Even when you ask for help, you can't get it. It's all nonsense. They don't help, they hurt. I've never had a good time with the police. The way the world is, people think what they want. It's hard not to think negative. Anything to make you feel less than of a human. No rights. Okay, now those are my own notes there, which I might get to. The second young man I'd like to introduce you to goes by the name of Philly, and I couldn't get Philly to write very much. He was a minimalist as an author. This is one of the things that he did give me, though. And honestly, he drew this face with the anime eyes like that over and over and over many times while I saw him, and he would write it on my books all the time. And when I was looking the other way, he would make this thing, and just to haunt me, I think. Still haunts me. This is about the only thing that I could get Philly to actually write. And I believe you're able to read that. Okay, the third gentleman I'd like to introduce you to will go by the name of Black Ricky. And I'm calling him that because there were a few Rickies in this prison, and there were a couple who were more well-known than the others, and they were sort of rivals. They were both named Ricky. One was white, so he was White Ricky. The other one was black, and he was Black Ricky, and so this is Black Ricky. Okay, Black Ricky writes, life not looking too good at 26 years old. One of my hardest times ever, facing a murder charge in Wayne County, PA. I never thought this would be my life or would ever have to face something like this, but here we are. Let me take you to where it all started. And then he did write for me quite a lot about his life. Down here it says, as time grown on, I got used to living here till I got too comfortable and found out how the law works in the Poconos. And as you can see, this is just a sample of what he wrote for me, and I can't go through all of it. But this last one here I would like to show you is where he actually mentions the room that we worked in. And it was called the multi-purpose room in the prison. And it was used for all kinds of different things. Basically all the different classes were taught there: art class, drug and alcohol class, Bible class, my classes. And the special thing about the multi-purpose room was that the surveillance there was different. It was pretty much non-existent. So when we were locked in there, which we were, I was locked in with my students, with no guards present, just me and them in there. They locked the room though because they had to, for whatever reason. And the the students I noticed had a different kind of attitude about that space, and the idea about this being a certain kind of special space in the prison became the inspiration for the things that I'm writing now. But anyway, the multi-purpose room helps me find my powers, because being in Wayne County, it takes me back to my childhood, things I'm trying to stay away from and hide. When you're in a correctional facility, they support to correct you, not have you in the same environment. The multi-purpose room is one of the best things that I have going in my time at Wayne County. For 2 hours and 2 days out of the week, I'm at peace with myself and away from the so-called correctional facility. I'm almost at my breaking point in this place. Okay, do I have a little bit more time, Aaron?
I'd say just a minute or two.
Okay, thank you. I just want to show you a couple of things, because I did write down some quotes from Black Ricky at different times when I was teaching, and or while we were sitting there writing in our journals. And I'm just going to show you a few of them. These are things that they're not all dated, and they're scrawled on in my notes because I was doing them while I was teaching, actually. But when I heard them say certain things, I just felt compelled to write them down. It's 12 December 2018, a little earlier than I mentioned before. Quote, "There's always someone who's trying you. You always got to prove yourself." Quote, "They fixed me up with a new identity," unquote. Quote, "She was the love of my life and I miss her, and I don't give much of a shit about anything anymore," unquote. Quote, "The best at what we do." There was a time when all three of these guys were constantly saying that, the best at what we do, and I didn't quite know what they meant. It was some sort of in joke, but I thought I'd write it down because they kept saying it over and over like a mantra. Quote, "We slaves, technically," unquote. Quote, "Degrading people in low power," unquote. Quote, "Crime rates start going up," unquote. "Motherfuckers got to do crimes," unquote. "One black guard and all the time here ever," emphasized. "Scared to bring my people here because of the way they treat people." Quote, "Cruelty is the point," unquote. Quote, "They get the blame," and this was said in the context of people being thrown in solitary way too much. Quote, "They get the blame, but we get the wrath," unquote, in the hole. They kept changing the name for solitary confinement every couple of weeks. Lots of people call it the hole, but as soon as everybody started calling it the hole, then they start calling it the bucket. And then when everybody started calling it the bucket, then they changed it to the box. And then when everybody started calling it the box, they changed it back to the hole again, and so on and so forth. Okay, I'm just going to sort of let you look at this for a second, so you can see the sorts of things that they wrote. One thing that I thought was really interesting was when they started to talk about how the need to make themselves, quote unquote, invisible, because when they were being provoked by the guards, quote, "Shouldn't be about rank or who's in a shitty mood," unquote. "My non-reaction," and I'm paraphrasing, "is," quote, "invisibility. Now they're stuck with your rights." Quote, "You got to act like you're not even there," unquote. Okay, so that's all I will show you now. Thank you for indulging me, but I want to make sure that there's plenty of time for Nandini and Bonnie to present what they would like to present now. So thank you very much, Aaron. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Thank you. Bonnie, would you like to go next?
Sure. So do I come full screen on here? Do I have to do that?
Nope, you can just have at it.
Okay. So can you see me full screen? Oh, okay, because I can't. All right. Because I have some things to share. So in 2008, I was approached by a student from Monmouth College in New Jersey to be the supervisor for an internship at Northampton County Jail. I had some experience with jails, but not here. And this is what I saw first. So this is Patrice. Patrice was 16 and she was in lockdown most of the time, except for 1 hour a day. Because she was young, she couldn't be with the rest of the women. And this is all I could see. All I could see were her eyes, and I had to talk to her through the door like that. And that haunted me to this day. A student in one of the Inside Outside classes drew this for me after I told her about that. A funny story to like counteract that, I guess, is that when I first started going in, it was summer and I knew the kind of food they had there. And so I went to Giant, I was doing grocery shopping and I thought, oh, I'm gonna take them fruit, right? There was this beautiful fruit there and I could just see how excited they would be. So if anyone's been in the jail, you'll know that that didn't quite work. So I go into the front door and the gate and I have this bags and they're like, Dr. Bonnie, you get to take those back to your car, right? So I go inside and I tell the women this, that I bought them fruit, but I couldn't take it in. And they said, oh, you need to learn how to do this. So if you teach a nutrition class, just tell the director you're going to teach a nutrition class, you can bring in food. So that was one of my first lessons in how to get done what I need to get done. And I was able to take in fruit every week. So that was cool. One of the next sessions, so I started doing art therapy and life story groups, and I did that for maybe 3 or 4 years before I started Inside Outside class. So if Erin, if you could show the woman, I think I might be giving her a hug. I think it's one of the first photos.
Okay, let me get on that. Ken, it says that I cannot screen share.
Okay.
No, I'll get it up. If you want to chat, I'll get it up momentarily.
All right. So the first picture I was going to show was of Donna. And Donna, I have, Donna, oh, yeah. So that's Donna with me. Donna has a great story. She joined my class. She was an older woman. And I want to read to you what she said in one of her reflections. Today, I attended the second class of Professor Winfield's Women and Gender Studies group. I felt very excited and anxious. What was to be expected of me from this class? I'm a lot older than they are, but being around younger adults made me feel young. But then I was scared. At the first class, we sat in a circle, and as time went by, I felt I wanted to isolate. Never would I be imagined to be able to participate in a program like this. But then later, she talks about how excited she was to be in the class. And then fast forward a few years, I went to the Lafayette Bar. There was a jazz concert, and I wanted my posse students to experience this jazz concert because one of their professors was playing. And when, I don't know if you know about the Lafayette Bar, but it is a great place for jazz. And when you walk into the bar. Well, there was Donna sitting at the bar. So I walk in and she yells across the bar, Dr. Bonnie, are these your students? Students, I was in Dr. Bonnie's class. It was really awesome. So that showed me I had 2 missions in my work at the Journey Home. One is to empower the women to know that they can do this. They can sit like in the second picture in the circle. We were really lucky because my first class, they allowed the press in. Could do the same work. They could read the same books, they could write the same stories, and they could sit there and have conversations with the Lafayette students. And I have many, many writings that I'm not gonna have time to share now, but of them being scared, not knowing what's gonna happen, and then being able to do it. So then if you could go back to me, I wanna show you another thing that happened with Donna. So we did artwork. And this is actually a mural, so it's really, really big, but I only have I couldn't bring the mural because it's really big. But if you look in the corner right here, are these purple feet, right? So each one of these sections represents a woman's life story. And she had to present it on a piece of paper. And then the women in my group, there were 6 of them, made it into this book. So Donna had a physical handicap, and she really wanted to put her feet on the mural. So the women said, okay, we're going to help you. So this is a thing that you find out when you go in and you meet the women about their compassion and their love for each other. So they took the canvas, put it on the floor, took a paint roller, rolled her feet, and helped her put her footprints on the canvas. Then they went and got a trash can, filled it with soapy water, and washed her feet so that she could be part of the mural the way she wanted to be. It was quite amazing. Let's see, what else did I want to share with you? So the impacts, so part of it is the impact on the women. The other part is so that the Lafayette students and anyone else like Nandini or Gilligan from Lafayette College or Peter and Randy, all these people, I want them to come in so that they know these stories and they can take these stories and tell other people about it. And so during our classes at the end of the inside outside class, I'm sorry, I'm kind of like speeding through here because I wanted to show you these. The Lafayette students and the women inside made a big art piece. And these are 3 of them. I did bring them from the studio. Sorry. At the end of almost the next to the end class, I brought in this big piece of watercolor paper. I gave the women baby wipes and some paint because I wasn't allowed to bring in paintbrushes. And they had to, first of all, put color on this old page. So they put color on, and then their task was, as a group, to represent on this canvas what they learned about women in the criminal justice system. So this is the woman, and this is what's inside that people don't see. And then all on the outside are the facts that they've learned about incarceration. So that was pretty amazing. Another lesson was to look at our lenses. And so this is the tree of life for education. And I don't know if you can see, but these are all little like glasses. And they presented inside these the lenses that they brought to the program. And then this is, they're so awkward. So this is the road they're on. And then this interrupted their path, right? So all of this is all their thumbprints. And it interrupted both the inside students and the Lafayette students. I don't know how much time I have. I have no idea. A little bit more?
Yeah, sure.
So one thing we did was we made a book. So if you put the photographs back up. So those are all pictures from the JAL, from that first class. And then if you can scroll down. Yeah, I'll tell you about this guy, Jeff, in the blue shirt. So the first time I taught the class, 2 men wanted to join, right? So I was thinking it's all women, but at the time, I had said men couldn't join, but soon, quickly after, the college told me I couldn't do that. So Jeff was very moved by what he learned in the class. And a few years later, he did an alumni talk and he invited me to come to it. And Jeff in the beginning wanted to be an international corporate lawyer. The presentation he was doing at the alumni like careers program was about the program that he was the director of in DC, which is an international NGO about race and gender issues in the world. I had no idea that this is what happened to him, that he had changed. And when he was doing the presentation, he said that he changed his life goals because of this class. So seeing what they saw inside and learning what they learned definitely changed so many people's careers. If you go down a little bit more, I think, yeah. So this is a presentation at Lafayette College, and you can go back to me now. We did a life stories group, and we actually have a book. This is a door in the jail. If you've never been there, this is the actual door. This is the actual cell. And Jess Baker drew both of these. And this book is full of stories that they wrote in their life stories class. The first one I'd like to read is by Lyric, who is the other person in the photograph that's drawing her self-portrait. Don't judge me. Don't judge me on the choices I've made when you don't know the options I've had to choose from. Don't judge me on my addiction and how I use it to escape from my sorrows. Don't judge me on my mental illness and reactions or how I was blind to my conviction. Don't judge me on the color of my skin, the scars on my body, or the locks in my hair. Don't judge me on my pathetic mugshots, on my green jumper, or number 22495. This is another story about friendship, which also involves Lyric. So this is written by Michelle. Friendship. I met a girl, not just anyone. She ended up being my best friend. When everyone else talked shit about me, she stuck up for me. She made sure it stopped. What I tell you, I needed a friend. I really needed a friend. This girl got me through the worst days I will ever do in my whole life. I don't know what I would have done without her. She gives unheartedly and asks nothing in return. She does for others simply because it's the right thing to do. You would never guess she's only 21. In fact, she turned 21 here in jail. Just as a side note, they had a big birthday party and they made the most amazing food from stuff they got in commissary. They made chocolate cake. I don't know if Nandy, you ever had any of what they've made, but it is so good. It's amazing what they can do. But still, she has been through hell. She won't let you know it though. The streets is where she grew up. If you look close enough, you can see the disappointment, pain, and anger behind those hazel eyes. So much talent, and she just has to believe in herself. She can do great things if she makes the right choices. She is one of the best people I've ever met. Jail isn't usually a place to make friends, but I got lucky. I found an amazing person that has saved me and got me through the worst days of my life. I don't know how I'll ever repay her. Thank you, Lyric, from the bottom of my heart. That is full of stories like that. The other book, this is Through a Mother's Eyes. This came about one Friday I went in and Rose was usually in the group, was hiding out in her cell. That afternoon, the Northampton County Jail often brings high school students for a tour. They brought the high school students of where her children were in school. She wasn't allowed to see her children, so she had no idea if they would be part of that tour. When they give the tours, it's like a zoo. So I don't know if you've ever been through a tour at the jail, but they bring you through, they bring you right in to see the women's, where they work. One day they interrupted one of our groups, a whole group of people coming in to see everything. So this day she wasn't sure, so she hid out in her cell. Then she finally came out and came to the group. And we began to talk about what it was like to be a mother in jail. And it was heart-wrenching. So each woman had a story about what it was like to be in there as mothers. And as you know, and you probably saw it, I think in the statistics in Nandini's film, that the percentage of women in the jail who are mothers is like almost 100%. I mean, almost everyone, right? So the women shared their stories, and then I asked them to write the stories, and then the next week we would read them. And so they did. And this book is all the stories that they wrote. One thing they did, of course, I always include artwork of some kind, right? So this is a mural that they made. This mural is really big, so I couldn't bring this in. So first, I had my baby wipes, I had the colors, and they're all on the table. And this was, I think, the week after. And I asked them to put their pain and everything they felt about this on the page. And so they take their baby wipes and they take their pain, and they were all sitting at the table expressing this amazing emotion into the paper. Then they were almost finished, and it was the most amazing thing that I had never experienced, is they all stood up at the same time and looked at it, and then they sat down. Later, when we were talking about the process, they said that they stood up after they had released their pain, and they had all kind of done that at the same time. After that, I took it home because it had to dry, and that's when they put all of these things on here, eyeballs and different things. And then they decided they were going to publish this book. So I'm just going to read you one thing out of this book. I saw your tears. I saw your tears because your mama ain't near. I saw your tears because I can't wipe away your fears. I saw your tears because I'm locked up. I wish I could tell you it's going to be all right. I wish I could tell you I'm putting up a good fight. I wish I could tell you bedtime stories at night. How do you make up for lost time? How do you keep your kids out of the same life of crime? How do you convince yourself this life will end up fine? I can't take back what's happened in the past. I can't take back all the feelings I've masked. I can't take back time because you're growing up fast. I see your tears. As the clock ticks away the years, I see your tears. And it breaks my heart because I'm stuck here. I see your tears, and it brings out my biggest fears that we'll be apart for a few more years. So I'm gonna close with a poem, and then we can have time for questions. So this is a poem that I always read. Sometimes I can't read it because it's just too emotional. But this was a piece of art that one of the Lafayette students made based on this poem. So this is a poem written by Eve Ensler. And I read it as much as I can. I read it so often, and you think I'd really read through it without crying. But this is how I feel. And this is how I felt after that first time I saw Patrice's eyes and saw them wash Donna's feet in Northampton County Jail. I've changed the words because Eve Ensler says Bedford because she worked at Bedford Prison, and I put in Northampton County. Everyone is here at Northampton County Jail because of a mistake. Some of those mistakes occurred within months, some within minutes. Most of the mistakes were dreadful, catastrophic. Now we have frozen you in your mistake, marked you forever, held captive, discarded, hated you for your mistake. You have essentially been forced to become your mistake, the walking daily embodiment of your mistake, held in this monument constructed to punish mistakes. Before I came to Northampton County Jail, I imagined you, the women in here, mistakes, lying on mistake cots behind steel mistake bars. Mistakes do not have faces or feelings or histories or futures. They are bad. Mistakes We must forget them, put them away. Then I came to Northampton County Jail. Slowly, I began to meet the mistakes one by one. Lorena, Lyric, Michelle, Rose, Clarissa. They had soft, delicate voices, strong hands, beautiful faces, feisty spirits, and outrageous laughs. These mistakes were mothers, daughters, sisters, aunts, Christians, Muslims, Buddhists, Jews. They had fantasies and toothaches and bad moods, and funky t-shirts, which of course they didn't wear. Then when we began our writing group, 15 different mistakes in one room, I began to see how it worked. There was the mistake in the woman. There was the mistake in the women who got Kleenex, actually toilet paper rolls, anytime anyone remotely cried. There was the mistake in the great deep love of one's child. The mistake in a brilliant poetic mind. The mistake in the woman who teaches, who writes, who sings, who braids, who hates herself for her mistake. Just aside, I just want to add a side note here. There was a woman most recently, before COVID happened, that was an amazing singer. She was in A2 East, which was a different unit, as the runner, which was a job over there, but she was allowed to come to my groups. She had a beautiful voice. In A2 East, the women would come in when they were detoxing, and at night, she would sing to them. She would sing from her cell so the other women could hear her singing. A few weeks later, one of the women got out of detox and came over to the unit and thanked her for providing that peace for her. There is the mistake in the woman who waits to move on from the mistake, who is desperate for the tools to transform the self that made the mistake, who longs to be seen as something other than a mistake. In our group, I watch women struggle week after week to give words, to give voice to the guilt, the sorrow, the fear, the despair that had formed around their crimes. I was honored. And I mean this, privileged, to experience the depth of their seeking and reflection. I was moved and changed by their courage and willingness to take full responsibility for their lives and deeds. There is the mistake. It is one moment. It is in the past. It is ruined. It cannot be changed. But then there's the woman. Thank you.
Bonnie, thank you so much. Nandini.
I think that's really unfair to try and follow that. I just want to say, Bonnie, there are a lot of people in the chat who are asking about the access to the books that you showed. So if you want to share with them what's the best way to purchase or get the books, you can drop it in the chat maybe. Okay. All right. Thank you, Mike and Bonnie, for those really powerful stories. So I'm going to keep it pretty short, so we have a more time for discussion. Yes, absolutely, Dr. Bonnie for president. Totally agree. I was going to say that my teaching in the jail has sort of, my involvement in the jail, I should say, is sort of threefold. And, and as I mentioned at the top of the panel, all roads lead to Bonnie and from Bonnie. So I met Bonnie at Lafayette, and if it hadn't been for her, my work at the jail wouldn't have continued. I was really inspired by her, as I'm sure all of you have been today. So I started by taking auditing an inside out class that Bonnie was teaching at the jail and wanting to learn more about the women there. And sort of that evolved into making a film that took 7 years, which some of you may have seen on Tuesday. I'm going to show you a little clip in a bit. So that was sort of my work there, not sort of teaching as much, but just really sort of going in, interviewing the women and sort of trying to tell this story a very local story, but really sort of trying to position it in the context of, in a national context, right? So for those of you that, know a little bit about criminal justice or criminal injustice, our system, you know that we incarcerate the most people of any country in the world. And all the stories that you're hearing are incredibly personal, but also just really speak to the sheer the trauma, right, of the men and the women and all the people that are currently incarcerated, and their families, right? Because it is, everybody pays that price. So that's what the film really tries to do. And then the other thing, I did that I do, or as I said, used to do, was to teach yoga. And for me, that was, I'm also a dancer, I think it was something for the women that was my way of giving back to the community. So many of them were willing to share their stories because of the film, for the film. But I also wanted to really work in a way to not work necessarily, but just be able to volunteer at the jail and do something. So those were the yoga classes that I was teaching, and hope to go back and do again. And I know it helped. And I think when I say that, it's like sort of the art therapy, the writing, it all matters. And I think what I was really struck by in teaching those yoga classes, it started actually at dance therapy and then it became yoga. And I think what I was really struck by the most was the fact that, we were in a space suddenly, like the classes that Bonnie and Mike teach, that they weren't being policed, right? There wasn't, people weren't, yes, I was teaching a class, but they all showed up. And these were women. I had women who had sort of real physical challenges. Some of them had MS, some of them had been in a car accident. And to sort of be in a space where they could just feel and breathe and be in their bodies, I think was really, I hope, I think really powerful for them. So that was really a way that was not sort of, that was beyond sort of the policing that happens in a correctional facility where, your own bodies are not your own, right? You're told what time to eat, what time to shower, what time to go to the bathroom. So there's these ways in which the yoga was sort of a space away from that. And for me, it was also a way to sort of have them sort of bring yoga into their lives even when I wasn't there. So the being able to meditate, to breathe, those were all really important things. And then the last thing I would say is that, I did my Inside Out training, which for those of you, and I don't know if Bonnie explained this, but Inside Out is a program. It's an international program. It's based out of Temple University. And instructors, professors can go in and do this training. And then what you do is you take students from that institution, so typically 15 students, and you work with 15 students on the inside. So hence the term Inside Out. And you have a group of 30 students, and that's the class that Bonnie was talking about. And you see pictures of people sitting in the circle. So I taught that class for the first time at the men's ward in the spring. Again, got interrupted by COVID. But it was, it's really powerful, I think, for all people involved. It's a forum where, the college students and learn from the inside students and vice versa. And it's really about sort of trying to break the idea of sort of breaking down these boundaries, right? Of what we think about. We have a sort of an impression of what we think people behind bars do or look like, or the mistake, as Bonnie points out, and Evensler in her poem. And really what it does is sort of like try to create a form of interaction where you're having these conversations that are really important about criminal justice and the prison industrial complex. So I think that's really what that class does. So that's sort of the, quick sketch of my work. What I was going to do was actually show you a clip of the film. Let's see, can we pull it up here? And it's, I'll play, it's right at the beginning of the film. I'll play you a few minutes. Hopefully it will work. Okay. And I will just
The walk of shame. When I walk through the flats, I'm like, damn, Tara again. I'm like, yeah.
I don't know why these things happen.
I keep making the same mistakes. You think you would learn from them, but it's hard. It's what I know. It's comfortable. So I got to step outside my comfort zone just to try to avoid jail. But jail's comfortable for me.
Oh, 00-6813 is my inmate number. That's how you know I did time on the old unit.
There was like maybe 50 women. It wasn't big. And I want to say there's like probably 200 now. 200 bitches, I almost said. 200 bitches. 199 bitches my kid. That's what it is.
There's 2.4 million individuals in jail in the United States. That's equivalent to New Hampshire and West Virginia's population total.
It's not a thought, it's how I feel. But how do I know the feeling is real? I'm choosing more smiles over frowns. It's been a long time coming for me to get shit right. I'm ready for a change, no longer putting up a fight. Through the grace of God, it's not too late to humble myself, change my life, and better my fate. I'm a writer. I write poems and write songs. Writing is natural to me. I'll start off with, I don't know what I'm going to write, and next thing you know, I have a full page. Different things just inspire me to, anger, happiness, It's a very good coping skill and a very good way to let your mind escape from the reality of being in these four walls 24 hours a day.
I love it here. I don't mind the food. I don't mind the people. I love the COs. I love the lieutenants. I get along with everybody, but I'm a regular here. Everybody knows me. It's like I'm a fucking celebrity.
Everybody says I don't get along with anybody. I don't like anybody. You're right. I'm not coming here to make friends. I don't have to be nice to nobody. And I'm not. I'm not looking to make no fucking friends in here. These young bitches that keep coming in here that are 18 and 19 years old, not my daughter. The other ones can have this shit.
Where you going? This. Where you going? Oh, wow. You so big and strong. Let me see your muscles. This is the reason I did everything I did. Both illegally and legally. I'm not going to say I regret doing what I did, because I don't. I regret the circumstances that led up to it that, that took me away from him. But as far as selling drugs, I don't regret it, because I did make a living off of it and supported my baby.
Do we have our share of bad people? Yes.
Sorry, so I'll end there. And that's just sort of gives you a little glimpse into the film for those of you who haven't seen it. And I think maybe we should transition to discussion.
Thank you. There are some questions in the chat. So Bonnie, folks are curious about where Journey Home is located.
So my studio is now in the center circle inside the Smartivities showcase. It's at City 60 Center Square, right next to the Bayou, the Caramel Corn Store. We are not open on Mondays and Tuesdays, but yeah, that's where it is. And all of the artwork is on display there, plus lots more. And it's also for sale. So.
And a little more, folks are asking for some information about your film. Would you share a little more about it?
Sure. I'm actually going to drop the link in the chat, and you can watch the film. So I'm going to I'll drop 2 links for you, and I'm going to say one thing quickly is that it's also available on Vimeo on demand, which is basically rents for $4.99. If you can afford it, that would be great. All the money goes for commissary to the women. And if you can't afford it, you can still watch the film, and I'll drop another link. So I'll do that while people are talking and before the end of the panel.
Ken posed a question. Does anybody know the average sentence of inmates at Northampton County?
Yes, the average is 3 months. You cannot stay there more than 1 day, less than 2 years. but the average stay is about 3 months.
Any other questions from students or guests?
I have a question. I feel like a lot of times the way that we frame these conversations about marginalized communities is what can we do to help them? Um, and I think that's an important way of phrasing things. But I think that we should also think about the question I'm always wondering is, what do people in marginalized communities have to teach us? So, for example, when we're talking about immigrants, if we only talk about ways in which we can help immigrants without having a serious conversations about ways in which immigrants are in a position outside of our context, who can therefore see things about our context that we can't see ourselves. The spinach in the teeth scenario where you need a friend in order to be able to see that. I think there's things about America that only a Mexican can really see. And if we never let a Mexican in, we're never going to be able to see that as a kind of argument for more of a liberal immigration policy. So what I'm wondering is, I think there are things that people on the other side of prison bars can see and can teach us, and that we can't see or be taught by anybody on this side of the prison. And so I'm wondering to our three panelists who have had experience working in prisons, when we think about incarceration and education, maybe we frame that in terms of what you taught them, but I'm wondering what they taught you. So what did you learn from any of the people inside of prisons that you don't think you could have, or jails that you don't think you could have learned from somebody out on the outside?
That's a great question. That's a very Ken question, if I may say so. The RICO Act. What many of the male inmates told me is that the horror stories about the RICO Act, the Reconnaissance Act, which gave detectives and cops the ability to use testimony from perpetrators against each other, and about how in their communities, which were in some cases, when the economy was bad, completely supported by drug trafficking. You had almost everybody in the community involved in the drug trafficking. And so once one person got arrested, the entire community would end up getting arrested because they would be, pitted against each other and coerced into giving information about each other. And it just totally ripped families apart, ripped towns apart, larger communities apart in ways that were really, really tragic. And they all seem to say over and over that, if it wasn't for the RICO Act, the world would just be a way better place. The idea being that, the drug trafficking supported their communities in times of need. And that when the times of need went away and more of them could get jobs, they would stop drug dealing. And, but when things got tough, the RICO Act made it possible for the cops to pretty much arrest an entire town. And one other thing about, how to help these people who are incarcerated, before we get to the end here, to answer the perennial question. Think of internet access as a human right. Think of education as a human right. And maybe what the college could do is think about initiatives that would, make connections between what we do at the college and incarcerated individuals. And, in short, start teaching college classes at the prisons. That's all for now.
So I'd like to answer that question. So I think what the women have taught me is the power of friendship. As you saw in the film, Tara passed away the day after she was released. Her daughter, Savannah, was inside, and the women who they met and became friends with all went to Savannah's house, supported her during that time. Now that I can't go in the jail and I don't have any contact with the women, the contact with women in Muncie and women on the outside. So I see how the friendship that has continued and how not only that they are there for each other, but how they set limits on each other through friendship. I mean, they can, sometimes I struggle with, the women will ask me to do something. And like I recently became someone's payee, and then some things happened and I had to take myself off of that role. And it was, really difficult. But through the women, I see how they can set limits on each other, and when they're doing something that's not quite right, and then celebrate each other when they can, when they should. And so the power of friendship is, I've read a couple of things about that, but it has been the most amazing lesson for me, and I think for some of the Lafayette students too, of what they've seen.
Hi, so you can hear me, right? Yeah, okay, sorry, I was getting a muted sign. So I want to answer that question. I think, folks have already answered it, but what I will say is that, when I started this film, in the process of making this film, I became an abolitionist. I don't believe in prisons. I don't believe in the carceral state. I don't believe in the police. I think we can do better. And I think that's what the women have taught me, because it's just that simple. I want to just use that question and type to somebody, Ian, who commented in the chat and talks about his father being a corrections officer. And I think that's, that's the damage, Ian, that you're talking about for your father, is also for the people. This system dehumanizes not just people who are incarcerated, but the people who are there to make sure that they stay incarcerated, who police them on a daily basis. And I think it doesn't serve us. It doesn't do anything for us. There is another possibility. We can imagine a world without prisons. We've all grown up with prisons and jails, and we sort of think of it as normal and natural. It isn't. There is another possibility. And I think, to answer the question at large about what can we do as a community, I think if you're, we can volunteer. If you're students, you can learn. There is so much to learn about the system that is incredibly unjust. Other abolitionists have described it as domestic warfare on its citizens, which I absolutely agree with. So I think there is a lot that we can do. And yes, this work that we're doing now to my mind, at least for me, is towards the goal of making their lives easier while they're in jail, but also having our eye on the bigger picture, which is to sort of eventually move towards abolition.
Thank you. I think one of the themes throughout the chat was about the impact of COVID and whether that stopped the programs that you're working on.
Sure did. So I can't go in. The women are in lockdown 23 hours of the day. Well, yeah, of the day. There's a special unit for people when they come in, and they have to go through that time. I think 3 women have been positive, and everyone is okay now. And I think maybe 6 or 7 of the correctional officers. It has a bigger impact on other prisons like Muncie. Major impact on women there, that they couldn't have the programming because there's lots of programming there. They couldn't have access to books and things like that. So that's the impact that it's had. And we still can't go into jail.
Thank you. So as we're close to the end here, I'll pose our concluding question. What can we do? And this is, again, picking up on some of the themes in the chat. What can we do? What can NCC do as a community, students, faculty, administration, to support the issues that we've talked about here today? Bonnie, why don't we start with you?
So there is amazing talent of the women and the men inside the jail. And I would like to see opportunities for education, and education that goes beyond job skills. You know, like there are so many women I wanted to go to the design lab. Is that what it's called in Bethlehem? To
Fab
help
Lab.
them, what?
The Fab Lab?
Fab Lab.
Oh,
To
great.
help them go beyond their thinking, right? Go beyond. So, you know, they're kind of stuck in, oh, well, I'll work in the, you know, diner, or I'll work here, but they are so talented. And if they had the opportunity to see that they could be. So I would like to see, you know, different kinds of classes available for them. And also, you know, more people when we can to go in and actually meet them and see, really experience them as people, not going in to say, okay, I'm here to do this for you, but just to experience them, I guess.
I'm told that,
Just,
oh, go ahead.
just to kind of kind of jump in there for a minute. I mean, the college is very interested in expanding our educational outreach in the prisons. We've met with Northampton County Prison. I think, Bonnie, we were part of a conversation, and all that was gearing up just as COVID hit us. So we want to figure out how do we recalibrate and put that in place, because I think it'd be great work for us to be doing, important work for all the reasons that I think we heard about today. So just so folks know that piece.
Thank you for saying that, Dr. Erickson.
Concluding thoughts? I'm told that I lost my Zoom connection for a hot minute there. So Ken messaged me that Mike and Nandini probably already answered that question, but I want to, any concluding thoughts?
Well, you know, about COVID, it really did, even though none of us could teach during COVID. I guess I can only speak for myself, but, you know, when COVID happened, it really did bring to the surface a lot of problems that are sort of lying dormant, if you will, in the prisons, just like it did in the world outside the prisons. A lot of the relationship between citizens and the law, the problematic relationship between citizens and the law in a lot of cases became much more glaringly apparent. And I personally, after COVID began, was teaching my ethics class at Main campus, a Philosophy 202 class. And, you know, we happened to be studying bureaucracies, you know, by definition, weak power structures because they're spread out over a great number of people and a great number of offices. And when there's an epistemic crisis happens, like a plague or an assassination or a depression or an environmental disaster or war, genocide, what have you, that structure separates itself from the law itself, and there's increased roguery on the part of people who are you know, typically protesting against the law or who are, you know, outlaws for whatever reason, but also on the side of those who enforce the law too. And so the so-called state of exception becomes much more visible during a pandemic like this. And so it gave me a lot of clarity about what had happened in that prison while I was there, clearly that I didn't have previously.
So Mike, thanks. And I think this would be a great conversation to continue in the lounge, actually, if anybody's interested in taking this on over there. I want to thank everybody for coming. I see in the comments that there's a lot of interest in doing an inside-outside class here. And I think that's a great idea. I think that would be fantastic. So, you know, we'll look into that. Thank you to our panelists for sharing the stories, and thank you for all the guests, all the participants for asking questions, and head over to the lounge.
Thank you, Erin, so much for your fantastic job moderating. Thank you for our 3 absolutely brilliant Bodhisattva panelists, Nandini and Bonnie. So much appreciation and gratitude for the work that you do. And Michael, so excited to be working with you on this. Thank you everybody for contributing to making this another amazing session at another amazing peace conference. And I'm humbled by your work. Thank you so much. And see everybody at 3:30. Our next session, we have a panel on climate justice, specifically focusing on pipelines, an important issue for Pennsylvanians. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ken.
Nandini and Bonnie, are you available to chat for a brief moment?
Sure.